How do you create professional looking content with the camera that's always in your pocket? And well, look no further because in this video, I'm going to be covering my top 4 tips to help you take your smartphone content to that next level. So let's just jump straight into it with tip number 1, which is shoot in RAW. So this first tip is more geared for photography, but by putting your phone's camera into RAW, this will allow us to capture high quality photos and will give us a lot more flexibility when editing. And there is a few different ways we can do this, but firstly, if you have one of the newer iPhones, you can easily turn on RAW by going into the settings of your phone, then scrolling down to camera, then tapping on formats, and then turning on Apple Pro RAW. Now from here, when you open up the native camera app, we are going to see this RAW button appear at the top here, and we can now easily toggle this on and off when we want. But now, if you have an older smartphone that doesn't offer any RAW settings, then we can still shoot in RAW by using some type of pro camera app. So my 2 favorite options are the free Lightroom mobile app or the Moment camera app. But for this demonstration, I'll just use the free Lightroom app. So once you have the app downloaded, we're going to tap on this blue camera icon in the bottom right here. And now this will open up the camera feature, but to turn on RAW, we're going to tap on this JPEG tab at the top and then toggle this switch to DNG. Now from here, we can take RAW photos directly in the Lightroom mobile app. Alright, but now moving on to tip number 2, and that is using different lenses. So depending on which smartphone you have, you may or may not have access to different lenses. So for example, I use the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and this phone comes with 3 different lenses built into the camera. So we have an ultra wide angle, which is around a 13mm focal length. Then we have the standard wide angle, which is about a 26mm focal length. And lastly, we have a telephoto lens, which equals around 77mm. So personally for me, I don't need any additional lenses, but my previous iPhone only had the one standard wide angle lens. So when I was using that phone, I invested into some clip-on lenses that I bought off Amazon. And these clip-on lenses allow me a bit more variety in my shots. But with that being said, there are cheaper options out there, but just be cautious because the cheaper lenses can sometimes not fit around your lens properly, causing this vignette to appear in your shots. But now with all the gear stuff out of the way, how can we use all these different lenses to take better content? And well, by having access to multiple lenses, we are able to get a variety of shots when we're out shooting. So for example, when shooting video, don't rely on just taking one boring shot to make up your entire story. Get into the habit of taking the same action or sequence multiple times, each using different focal lengths and angles. Because by mixing wide angle shots with tighter shots, this will make your videos a lot more engaging to watch, and the same can also be said for photography. Because on platforms like Instagram, we are able to post carousels, which are a series of photos placed into one post. And by capturing a mix of different angles and focal lengths of a certain location, we are able to showcase and tell a more rounded story through our photography. Alright, now moving on to tip number 3, and that is camera movements. So this tip is more focused for filmmaking, but just know that movements help bring your videos to life, and if done properly, this will take your videos from looking like a home movie to a pro movie. With that being said, we have a full smartphone creator course that goes into depth about everything we are talking about today, especially camera movements. But my top 2 favorite movements that I use all the time are the parallax, and this is when you slowly rotate around your subject while still keeping them in the same position. When done correctly, it should look like the background is the only thing moving. This movement works great at both wide and tight angles, and it's one that I use all the time with a stabilizer. But now the next camera movement I use all the time is the reveal. And this one here is quite unique because it's not fixed to just one specific movement, and it can be achieved in many different ways. But the basic concept for this movement is to introduce a new subject or focus in your shots. So for example, with this shot, the movement from here is revealing my subject here. Another example is this shot here, where I'm starting with my camera past my subject and then pushing out to reveal them in my shot. Okay, now moving on to the final tip for better smartphone shooting, and that is shooting for the edit. So this concept is basically when you plan out your shots and story ahead of time so that when you're out in the field shooting, you can be sure to capture all the necessary shots required to showcase your photos and videos in the best way possible. So some examples of shooting for the edit can be finding the music you want to use for your video before the actual shoot day, because as you will learn as a filmmaker, the right song can make or break your videos. And by having an idea of the type of music you'll be using, you'll be able to shoot your shots to match the vibe of the song. So for example, if you're planning to use a more slower paced song for an emotional styled video, then by knowing this ahead of time, you could then focus on shooting a lot of slow motion clips on the actual shoot day. Another thing that will help you shoot for the edit is creating a rough storyboard detailing the flow of your video. And this storyboard doesn't have to be super polished, because as you can see in this example that I created for a campaign that I shot for Bose, I've just put a few photos with some dot points that I can quickly refer to while out shooting. And this was something I made in about 10 minutes on canva.com, and by having this rough skeleton of my video, I was able to be a lot more efficient on both the shoot day and during the edit. But there we have it guys, that is my top 4 tips to creating better smartphone content, and as I mentioned earlier, this is only scratching the surface of what is inside of my new Smartphone Creator Pro course. This course currently consists of 70 step-by-step training videos covering everything you need to know to shoot and edit professional looking photos and videos with just your smartphone. We are also throwing in a bunch of digital assets such as my personal preset packs that I've used to edit photos for some of the biggest brands in the world, easy to use templates to showcase your work in a more creative way, smartphone wallpapers, raw photos that you can use to practice your editing with, cheat sheets to help you remember key components while you're out shooting, and so much more. So if you're wanting to 10x your smartphone content in just 10 days, you can hit the link in the description below to get enrolled. But now, I appreciate you for making it this far in the video, and if you found some value from it, hit the like and subscribe button on your way out, and be sure to check the videos out on the screen because they are what YouTube thinks you should watch next. Peace out.